Call this meeting to order. Welcome to our December 16th Planning Commission meeting, and if everybody could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Bergman? Present. Commissioner Gutierrez?
Present.
Commissioner Marsters?
Present.
Vice Chair Silberman?
Present.
And Chair Harper Pedersen?
Present. Thank you. Public comment. Public comment is limited to items that are not on the listed agenda. Is anybody out here, is anybody here to speak tonight on items that are not on the agenda? No? Okay, seeing nobody, we will go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes. We are going to look at our November 18th, 2013 minutes. Does anybody have any changes or additions to the minutes?
There is a portion on page 3, towards the bottom. It's the third to last paragraph, and it starts Vice Chair Silberman. I believe those comments were made by Commissioner Marsters. And all of them in that paragraph, actually.
Okay, does that sound right? Okay. Lisa, if that change can be noted. Okay. Are there any other changes or additions to the November 18th minutes? Okay, seeing none, may I entertain a motion, please?
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is our public hearing. Since I see a lot of new faces in the crowd, I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit about the public hearing. Staff is going to present a report on the history and the physical features of the application, and then then they're going to follow with their staff recommendations. At that point, the applicant may also make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may come up and speak on the proposal, and please fill out a speaker card located closest to the door. When all interested parties have had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider evidence and make our recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those items that you or somebody else has raised at public hearing, or that has been submitted in written correspondence to the city prior to public hearing. Okay, and if you can hand your speaker card to staff, they will go ahead and pass those forward, and that please speak into the microphone with your name and address, and that will help the staff prepare the minutes. Our first item on the agenda is 596 Club Drive, and we are considering a request for a tentative map, grading, and dirt haul certificate and design review approval.
Chair Harper Pedersen, I need to recuse myself from 596 Club because of my affiliation with the Homeowners Association.
Great, thank you, Shannon.
Good evening, Commissioner. Stephanie Bertolo Davis, Senior Planner. Tonight you are being asked to consider a project located at 596 Club Drive. The project is threefold, or 3 entitlements requested. First one being a tentative parcel map for approval of the subdivision of this one existing lot into 2 lots. The second being a grading and dirt haul approval certificate to allow for earthwork at the site that exceeds 1,000 cubic yards in volume. Lastly, design review approval for the construction of 2 new single-family homes on the 2 new parcels to be created. Brief description of the site, aerial photograph, the subject site outlined in yellow with the star. The site itself is a little less than 25,000 square feet in area. It's located at the corner of Club and Crestview Drives. Both the general plan land use designation as well as the zoning district designation cite this as a single-family low-density parcel. Bit more detail on the project request itself. As I mentioned, it is threefold. All 3 entitlements do require the Planning Commission review and approval. The proposed subdivision of the existing parcel into two newly configured parcels are described in the project documents as Lot A, which is proposed to be subdivided at 10,000 square feet, and Lot B, the larger, at 14,723 square feet. As I mentioned, the earthwork associated with the construction of the two new single-family homes proposed to be built on both sites cumulatively results in a volume of 1,465 cubic yards. Of that total, 280 of it will remain on site as fill, and the remaining 1,185 cubic yards would be hauled off-site. The demolition of the existing single-family home on the parcel and the construction of two new homes results on Lot A, the 10,000 square foot lot, a new two-story, little over 4,000 square foot home with the driveway for this property access off of Crestview Drive, but the front of the home oriented towards Club Drive. The larger lot proposed as Lot B has a little less than 6,000 square foot home. This includes a little over 1,000 square foot garage basement. Both the driveway and the front of the home of this parcel is oriented towards Club Drive. So, excuse me. Getting into the first requested entitlement, which is approval of a tentative parcel map associated with the subdivision of the lot. Tentative parcel maps depict the design and improvements of a proposed subdivision. These are subject to regulations of both the city's subdivision ordinance as well as the state subdivision map act law. Post-approval by the Planning Commission and prior to filing of the project at the building permit stage, a final map would be recorded, approved by the City Council, recorded at the San Mateo County Recorder's Office. The design of the lots in terms of their area, their depth, their width, percent to remain ungraded do comply with the city's local subdivision requirements based on their slope, as well as the use of single-family homes at a low density as required by the city zoning ordinance. All the city departments have reviewed the request for subdivision and determined that all public services can be served to two lots. The lot configurations are consistent with the established lot patterns in the neighborhood. And for these reasons, and as specified in further detail in the staff report, it's found that the project is able to meet the 10 required findings in order for a tentative parcel map to be granted. Two related tentative parcel map typos in the staff report and the entitlements I wanted to bring to your attention. First would be on page 8 of the staff report. Required finding number 7, the word not was omitted. It should read, the design of the subdivision or proposed improvements are not likely to cause substantial environmental damage or substantially avoidable injury to fish, wildlife, or their habitat. Secondly, in attachment 2, which is the grading and dirt haul, attachment 1, the tentative parcel map certificate, all reference to the Belmont San Carlos Fire Department should strike reference to the word Belmont. The second requested entitlement is the grading and dirt haul certificate. Again, the volumes broken down as I specified previously. Specifically, of the 1,185 cubic yards to be hauled off-site, it's anticipated that trucks at a 10 cubic yard capacity would accommodate this project. That results in approximately 120 truck trips. The applicant estimates that this work would be completed in about 1 month's worth of time. The dirt haul route, as required by the city subdivision, the city's municipal code, has been established by the city engineer, both for empty trucks going to the site as well as full trucks leaving the site. There's one required finding the Planning Commission needs to make in order to grant a grading and dirt haul certificate. For the reasons as specified and as detailed in the staff report, it is found that the project would be able to meet this required finding. One more point I would like to make as well. The municipal code does prohibit grading activities between the months of October 15th and April 15th of every year. So no work could begin at this site for the earthwork specifically unless the city engineer was to approve it otherwise.
And how, so the applicant would then submit a request if they wanted to do work during a dry spell before the 15th?
They would submit that request simultaneous with their building permit plans.
I see.
And depending on the nature, specific nature of the work, the city engineer has the authority to allow even small components of the overall grading work to be conducted.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie.
The last requested entitlement is for design review approval to allow for the construction of the 2 new single-family homes. This includes their proposed landscaping plans as well. Before getting into the specifics of the design review findings, a little bit of background as it relates to the design review for this project. 2 study sessions have been conducted by the RDRC, or the city's Residential Design Review Committee, November of 2012, as well as February of this year. There have been 6 primary concerns expressed by both the neighbors and the RDRC committee. The plans that are being presented to you tonight have attempted to address those 6 concerns, which I'll get into now. The first item was in regards to the safety and well-being of existing trees and vegetation, not on the subject site, but located to the rear of what's called Lot B, or proposed Lot B, along Trillium Lane. This photograph shows the trees that I made mention of. This is Trillium Lane here. This is the subject site, and this is approximately the rear shared property, or the rear property line of Lot B. The RDRC study sessions, staff has asked the city arborist to perform a site inspection of the property, inspect the trees along Trillium Lane, and review the plans as proposed. And since that point, the city arborist has developed protection measures, which have been incorporated as draft approval conditions in the code compliance certificate. He's also determined that the proposed plans, as they are shown and presented tonight, would not pose any long-term impacts to the trees as it relates to construction. The second item on which concern was expressed at these study sessions was for revised landscaping for Lot A, and that's the lot farther up towards Crestview Drive, Crestview Drive, as it related to some privacy concerns to the adjacent neighbor to the north at 289 Crestview. And the applicant has since revised the landscaping plans to add greater landscaping components, added some more trees at a larger planting size, at 24-inch box size. The third item had to do with concern of traffic and vehicular safety at the intersections of Trillium Lane and Club Drive, as well as Club Drive and Crestview. Specifically as it related to the proposed driveway access points for both Lot A and Lot B. The city's Public Works Department has reviewed the plans as proposed. It is their professional opinion that the driveway locations and subsequent corresponding distances from the intersections I just mentioned and the proposed driveway locations are sufficient so as not to pose any significant traffic or circulation issues. The Public Works Department has also stated that the existing sidewalk and street crosswalk improvements that are located at Club and Crestview Drive have been installed to industry standards. The fourth of the 6 items of concern expressed had to do with the construction staging and parking plan during the construction activities for both the 2 new homes. Excuse me. And since then, the applicant has submitted a construction, parking, and staging plan that shows where the vehicles and materials would be stored during construction, all of which would be to occur on site. A condition has been added to the draft code compliance certificate requiring a bit more detail in the narrative prior to building permit issuance. The fifth concern or question expressed had to do with the proposed window locations, specifically of Lot A and Lot B to their nearest existing neighbors, both multifamily and single-family homes. Unfortunately, a bit hard to see in this rendering, but it's included in the plan packet. The applicant that's since submitted a view study, both on plan and in elevation. What you see here is the elevation. This makes out the outline of proposed home A, this proposed lot B and home B, and the corresponding distances between the nearest windows for home, here we go, B and A. Those distances are between about 110 to 115 feet to the nearest windows at the Trillium Lane frontage. That, in combination with the existing landscaping to remain and be protected, as well as the new landscaping to be proposed, will also help to serve as a screening mechanism between the existing homes and those proposed at the subject site. And the last item of question, as it came out of the RDRC study sessions, to do with the proposed wood retaining wall that effectively follows the rear and side boundary of Lot B. The one, here we go, further down here, there's a wood retaining wall proposed for almost the entire property boundary at the rear and up a bit towards Club Drive. So the applicant has since provided additional information on that wall. It is proposed to be a landscaping wall between 2 to 3 feet tall, finished with wood. The applicant's landscape architect has prepared a corresponding landscape and irrigation plan that shows that that wall will effectively be screened once the proposed vegetation is grown at maturity. Staff also had the city's building official take a look at the proposed plans, and as the wall is proposed in its current state, he's determined that that wall would be exempt from any permit review, but should those construction details change, the point of building permit submittal, it would require re-review and could be required to be engineered if taller than 4 feet. So with that, a bit of detail on the proposed new homes at Lot A and Lot B. Lot A, the smaller of the two lots, proposes a 2-story home, a little over 4,000 square feet in area. Lot B, the larger of the two, larger home at a little less than 6,000 square feet. This is the home that has the 3 levels, the lowest level being the garage at a defined basement. These are renderings of the 2 proposed new homes. This home here being Lot A, this one being Lot B. Where the cursor is approximately the intersection of Club and Crestview Drive, so this is a rendering from Club Drive. This rendering down here is the rear of the Lot B house, as would be viewed from Trillium Lane. I also have the flat elevation drawings, but I will keep the slides here for discussion purposes, but we can go back to the flat drawings if you wish.
Thank you.
So both homes do meet the city's zoning development standards as it pertains to height, lot coverage, setbacks, landscaping, parking areas. Beginning with the house on Lot A. It's a 2-story home that was oriented on the site in the attempts to reduce its visual prominence as much as possible, and as per the applicant, much of which resulted from conversations with the adjacent neighbor on Crestview Drive. The design is found to be compatible with the existing architectural neighborhood styles. It has a comprehensive landscaping plan which both assists to mitigate the visual impact of the new home and create an overall design aesthetic that ties in with this type of loosely described as Mediterranean architecture and that's existing in the neighborhood. The home would be finished in a variety of high-quality materials, including stucco, stone, iron. The multicolored concrete tiled roof also complements this Mediterranean-type design. There are 2 existing heritage oak trees on this site. Kind of shown maybe here in the rendering, but better on plan view, that would remain. Moving on to the house on Lot B. This is again the larger home that will appear more as a 2-story split level from the public right-of-way here along Club Drive, and at the rear a 2-story as well. Given the way that the home has been proposed to be situated on the site in relation to the existing natural topography, which has a slight downslope towards Trillium Lane. The floor levels and wall lines are set back and staggered. Window treatments added on all facades in the attempt to follow the natural topography I was just describing and reduce the overall bulk and mass. This home was oriented in the attempt to be comparable in terms of lineal elevation lengths relative to its most closest abutting neighbors, which are both multifamily structures as well as single-family structures. Again, this overall Mediterranean style is complementary to the home on Lot A, with attempts to make it different enough that it is not cookie cutter, so to speak. In terms of design review approval, the Commission is required to make 5 required findings in order to grant such. As outlined in the staff report and as conditioned in the draft code compliance certificate, the required findings are found to be met by the proposal for each of the 2 new homes proposed. The analysis goes into depth separately for both Lot A and Lot B. Public outreach and comment. Required notice was sent to property owners of 300 feet of the site, as well as to homes that abut on the established dirt haul route, minus arterial streets, busier, heavier streets such as Crestview Drive, Holly, San Carlos Avenue. No comments or questions were directed to staff at the point of tonight's meeting, with the exception of a conversation that I had with the adjacent property owner at 289 Crestview Drive related to a related but independent lot line adjustment application that was approved administratively at the staff level between his property and what's referred to as Lot A. This lot line adjustment approval allows this subdivision to meet the minimum area requirements for the tentative map certificate that I described earlier. The applicant did conduct their own public outreach as well, with primarily through the mailing out of items, provided their contact information. I do believe he's had conversations with several of the neighbors over the course of the last several years as this project has developed, and stated their attempts to address the concerns as they have been expressed to him. So with that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission grant a tentative parcel map, grading and dirt haul certificate, and design review approval to allow for the subdivision of the existing parcel to 2 parcels, the construction of 1 new single-family home on each of the resulting new lots created at 596 Club Drive. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the Commission may have. The architect is here as well as the landscape architect and the engineer, I believe, to answer any specific questions that the Commission may have of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie at this point before I ask if the application or if the applicant would like to speak?
Just
Yeah.
one quick question, Stephanie. So I know there's been a concern about the retaining walls and the slope of that property on the backside. What happens if something happens? Who is responsible for fixing it? Is it the engineer? Is it the property owner? If that property starts to slide a little bit, and those retaining walls don't hold, who is the person who's ultimately responsible for taking care of that?
The property owner.
The property owner. And that's, as part of the approval of the project, that makes the individual responsible.
That's correct, but in a related point that I'd like to make that I didn't verbalize previously is that staff has asked both the city engineer as well as the city geologist. There has been a preliminary geotechnical report prepared for the property, and it is in their professional opinions that the details as they are proposed have proved to be sufficient in terms of the site's feasibility at the construction aspects as they are proposed. And given, again, that the nature of these landscaping retaining walls, the walls are not subject to permit.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Stephanie at this point? Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Would the applicant like to come up and speak?
Hi, my name is Bill Pashlinsky. I'm the architect. It's been a long road for us. We started the project in 2007. We do have the full team here. I think Stephanie's done a terrific job in describing and really selling the project tonight. I'm really incredibly impressed. I've never heard anybody do as thorough a job in any of the previous planning commissions that I've done, and I've been an architect for quite a while. I'm going to address just the one issue that's been brought up about the wall. The site is compared to what I do, and I do working throughout the Bay Area, San Francisco, a lot of the properties left, it's just the nature of the properties left that are undeveloped tend to be on fairly steep hillsides. This I would not consider is a pretty gentle slope, up there. It's a very gradual grade. We did bring a structural engineer with us tonight if you have any concerns. The wall is of such. One, we did prepare a geological survey. When you do surveys, you can see soil conditions, if there's something unstable with the strata. We see nothing here that seems out of the ordinary. We certainly, for our own liability and our own conscience, really want to make sure any project is safe and sound. We tend to over-design these retaining walls 2 or 3 or 4 times over, any requirement. I think that in the design of retaining walls, we've come a long way because we've had to. But this is really a low, I want to say low priority, but it is a minimal retaining wall. Most of it's 2 feet. At parts of it, maybe it goes up to 3 feet. One, it's unlikely it's going to fail. 2, that the nearness to anybody, I believe on that one drawing I did, but I think from Trillium Street, we're a good 30 or 40 feet. We don't expect anything to fail. We're certainly not going to design it that way. But I do not think that comparably that it would be considered a major hazard. But certainly if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer. You always, have liability with these projects. And once again, I want to reiterate, you really want to make sure they're designed correctly from the very get-go.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant or his team at this point?
One. Do you have your landscaper here with you?
Yeah.
Can you come forward, please, to the microphone? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alita Truant. I'm the landscape designer who prepared the plans.
Thank you. So my question was, I went up and looked at the lot, and on the back of House B, okay, that's a pretty sloping back, and I'm not exactly sure how you're cutting into the property in order to build that, but my concern was the houses that are on that, I would say it's off Trillium Lane. Is it Trillium Street that's off Trillium Lane, or is that technically a driveway?
It looks like a private part of that homeowners association. In fact, I went out and made, I don't know the exact name, but I think
Yeah.
you're right. It's Trillium Lane, and then I know the first left
Yeah.
of Trillium you're talking about.
Yes.
That is at the base of that slope, where there are some more of the houses or
Yes.
condominiums or.
And I was just worried about the view from that house, and especially from the second floor balcony, of the back of House B down onto those houses. And I looked for any landscaping that's sort of in the back there, and it looked like there's a perennial bed, but no trees or anything to really block the visual impact of that house on the
On that end.
on that end.
To speak to that, I went back, because of that concern was raised, I went back and did a survey of the existing trees on that slope. So those trees do not belong to House B, to the property owner. However, the homeowners association, Trillium Homeowners Association, has planted several trees that are actually going to become quite large. They're ash, there are oaks, several trees. And so I think that, and we do have one pretty large tree flanking the balcony there. It's not directly in front, but there is a large tree off that balcony, and
You mean the one that looks like it's near the swimming pool?
yes.
Okay.
T5.
Okay.
But I think that those trees on that slope, as they get more mature, because when I looked up, I went out there and I did that site, I think that those will actually, that are already existing, will help ameliorate and cover that balcony. I don't think that that will be really too big an issue.
Because I was concerned that the height of that balcony and those trees are going to take some years to actually get to the level of that, and because of the downslope, my concern was that those trees may not get to the height, whereas a tree or two in this back area here might actually be on the same
I don't think
level.
that's a problem. When I went out to Trillium Lane to do this survey, I actually met with one of the owners who was on the landscape committee of the Homeowners Association, and he had told me, he showed me around and showed me that they had planted those trees, the ash and the other trees up on that slope. And when I looked, the other issue is there are not many windows. What there mainly are, they're garages and it's like roof. So there's not view windows from the homeowners' houses up towards that balcony. So I don't think it's a concern of those property
neighbors.
owners.
Okay.
I don't think there are no windows, because I actually stood on that lane with this gentleman and looked back up, and it's pretty dense. There's a lot of trees right under that perennial bed. There's a lot of trees flanking the property line there and all the way down the slope, including some large ash.
Is there a fence there?
No,
No.
no plans for a fence, just the low retaining wall at this point.
Is there a fence around the swimming pool?
No, there's an automatic pool cover, which is acceptable by the Code of State of California.
Yes, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for the landscape architect or the rest of the team? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And certainly if any questions come up, we can recall the team. At this point, then, I'd love to hear public comment. I don't have any speaker cards in front of me. I'm curious if anybody was here to speak on Club Drive. Okay. David, would you like to come on up?
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission, you all know me at this point. I happen to be the neighbor next door. So, in my pro-density point of view on things, I'm actually proposing that we approve this density increase next to my house. And in fact, the piece of property that transfers is on my property. So I urge you to pass it. The architect has worked with me to try to ameliorate as many of the view issues as possible. It's not perfect, but I'm happy with it. So.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Okay, well then, seeing no other speaker cards, I'd like to entertain a motion to close public comment and deliberate.
Move to close public comment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nice.
Okay. Well, at this point, then, does anybody have any comments or any statements at all about the deliberation? I know that at least two of us have been through the earlier stages through the RDRC with this project, and I have to say that I am really pleased that so many of the issues that have been brought up earlier in the process have been addressed by the applicant, and that bodes really well for the process. I'm just very pleased about that, and that's my only statement or comment at this point. Okay. Well, if nobody has any comments or deliberation, if I can entertain what looks like three motions.
Do we take these motions individually?
I believe so.
Okay. I'll start with the first one. I move that the Planning Commission approve the request for a tentative map for the subdivision of one parcel into two parcels at 596 Club Drive based on the findings for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and as conditions in the tentative map certificate.
May I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to do motion
Just
two?
Do them all?
I can do them all.
Thank you, Scott.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the request for a grading and dirt haul certificate for grading and earthwork activities at approximately 1,745 cubic yards at 596 Club Drive based on the findings for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and as conditioned in the grading and dirt haul certificate.
May I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
And I move that the Planning Commission approve the request for design review for the construction of one new single-family home on each of the resulting two new parcels at 596 Club Drive for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and as conditioned in the code compliance certificate.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you all very much. Great. I'd like to go ahead and move on to item B of our public hearing, 775 Industrial Road, Environmental Review, Design Review, Grading and Dirt Haul, Sign Plan Variance, and Conditional Use Permit for the construction of a new automobile sales and repair facility. And I'd like to invite Shannon back up. I keep wanting Commissioner Shannon, Commissioner Bergman. I'm getting way too familiar. Yes, come on in. Thank you.
Can they reuse these? Rather than me recycling them, can they make any use of these? I feel like I want to run after them and give them this. This is so much paper.
Give them mine, see if they can mine.
Let your kids draw on the back.
They can have them if they want.
Aye.
Good evening.
Hi, Lisa.
As introduced, the item is 775 Industrial Road, and the request is for environmental review, design review, grading and dirt haul, a sign plan, variance, as well as a conditional use permit for a new automobile sales and service facility. The subject site is a flag lot that's located just off of Industrial Road, and it backs up to Highway 101. The subject site is a little over 2.6 acres in area, and it was previously utilized by Praxair together with the front parcel, and is currently just used for some vehicle storage. The applicant proposes to construct a new two-story, 44,000 square foot building for automobile sales and service. The business hours are proposed as the sales showroom would be Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sundays they would operate from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and the service department would be open daily from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The first item is the grading and dirt haul. As the subject site is located within the floodplain, San Carlos Municipal Code requires that the first floor of new construction be raised above the floodplain elevation, and as such, that's requiring importing of 6,905 cubic yards of soil. The applicant has estimated that would be contained within 380 truckloads, and the work would be completed within 3 to 4 weeks.
We have a haul route that's been approved by the city engineer, and I actually got input from County of San Mateo Public Works Department that they are agreeable to this haul route. So they can access the site from 101 Britain to Industrial and then depart Industrial to Hawley to 101. So it's a pretty straightforward haul route. Just to give you an overview of the site plan, as indicated, it's a flag lot, and this is the primary access to the site. That would be used for vehicle entering and exiting the site, as well as providing the emergency vehicle access and garbage truck access. So that's kind of our biggest turning radiuses is emergency vehicles and garbage trucks. They also have an easement that goes across this area, and that's not intended to be used as the primary access for the site, but it can be used as secondary access if needed. So the site, I can get into it more with the landscaping, but it's surrounded by stormwater bioretention system. And then the first floor would primarily be the showroom in this area. This is some service desks. This is kind of the parts and service area, and then the entire service bay in the rear of the building. And the service department is accessed right through here. There's a roll-up door. And then this is the ramp that would access rooftop parking. And that rooftop parking is only for vehicle storage. It's not intended for any customer parking or access. And then getting in just a little more zoomed in version of the floor plan, here's the main entrance with the showroom in this area. And then again, some office area. And this is where the service counters are really handled. The second floor plan has some office space, employee break room, and parts storage. And this is the front elevation. And again, given that it's a flag lot, it's really minimally visible from Industrial Road. I think you're really going to have to take a quick look as you're driving down to get a view of this. But as you enter the site, this is kind of that vantage that's fronting towards Industrial Road. And here's the main showroom entrance with kind of a decorative tower element, a large glass showroom, a decorative canopy across that entrance. And here's then the service area with the roll-up door accessing the service department. And this is the rear elevation that you would definitely see along Highway 101. This is, again, a kind of a decorative element in the blue panels. And these windows would be of the rooftop parking, so they would actually be able to have some vehicle display in there, probably similar to when you're driving north and you see the Mercedes dealerships, kind of has some of the vehicles in the windows. So that would provide some nice interest in that facade, as it's a rather large facade along Industrial Road. It's got a lot of clean lines, kind of modern look to this building. There's also some windows here in the showroom to provide some light into, service area, to provide light into the service area. The elevation, this would be the front towards Industrial Road and the rear at Highway 101. So there's that front showroom, and then here's the ramp that you see that would go up to the rooftop parking for vehicle storage. And then the other elevation, Industrial Road, you see here the pole sign, 101 with the pole sign, and then Industrial Road with the front of the building. And as I mentioned with the landscaping, under our stormwater requirements, they are required to have on-site retention and treatment of the stormwater. So we have the perimeter bioretention planting, and then some shade trees throughout the site, as well as some kind of accent planting around the entrance to the building. And this plan does comply with the stormwater requirements and also meets our minimum landscaping requirement, 10% of the overall site area. Signage, it includes approval of the complete sign plan as well as a variance, and the elements of that variance request are really that secondary pole sign out on Industrial Road. So the code allows one pole sign, and the primary pole sign would be this one at the rear that you see from Highway 101, and that does meet our code requirements. The height is 40 feet, and the sign face is 10 by 10, so that complies with the sign ordinance. But that secondary pole sign that would be out on Industrial Road would be part of the subject of the variance approval, and that's a 13-foot height and a 5 by 5-foot sign face. Given the constraints of the site, limited visibility from Industrial, as well as the limited ability to put a monument sign, because monument signs have larger setback requirements than a pole sign, as well as the site visibility when you're traveling north on Industrial, with the building next door being rather close to the street frontage, it would be rather difficult to see the monument sign. So given the site restrictions, we are supportive of the variance request. They're also requesting some changeable banners, and one would be a larger banner at the rear of the building, and some more decorative banners that are kind of similar to what the city has on our light poles as well as downtown, the flag banners that hang that have some messages that would be changeable. So they would like to put those on the interior of the property, on their light poles, as well as, I think, 5 of them at the rear of the building, and those may have images that change over time to also provide some interest in the building and break up the mass. And then the overall signage includes all the wall sign, the pole signs, this emblem, and all these identification signs together with those changeable flag banners that I mentioned in the larger display banner at the rear. They're requesting a total sign package of a little over 1,200 square feet when our standard code requires 200 square feet. And as I indicated, this is a rather unique property. It's a very large property, over 2.6 acres. Given the size of the building, I think the signs would fit in well, as well as the banners are really only visible on the poles when you're interior of the property, and given that limited visibility on Industrial Road and the need for the pole sign. So staff is supportive of the variance. And as requested by one of our commissioners, thank you very much, the applicant did a quick mock-up so you could see what that pole sign might look like on Industrial Road. And so he's got it there, and as you see, here's the driveway and the site at the back. And this is that building I mentioned next door that's rather close to the street frontage. So that's a mock-up of what that pole sign might look like. We did prepare an initial study mitigated negative declaration. We also had Hexagon Transportation Consultants take a look at what the trip generation would be for this project. And we have several mitigation measures relating to air quality and noise, pretty standard mitigation measures during the course of construction. Geology and soils, standard again requirement for the soils report to be submitted as part of the building permit submittal process. And then hazard and hazardous materials. There is some really deep and old soil contamination in the site from when it was under the Praxair use. So Praxair is the responsible party. They're working with San Mateo County Health to remediate that. And so the only request now for the applicant is that they cooperate with that process. And they've, in detailed discussions with the county, staff has also had those discussions as well to understand what the requirements are. And the county has issued a letter and also verbally told us that the building can be constructed as proposed as long as they continue to cooperate with the remediation effort. And then again, standard mitigation measures relating to cultural resources if anything's found during the course of construction. And as well, Commissioner brought to our attention that unfortunately we had a bit of an oversight with requiring the transportation demand management plan as a part of this project. So we've informed the applicant that that would need to be submitted and turned into Planning Commission and staff for review, so we'll need to bring that back to you at a future meeting date. So we've added this as a condition of approval, and I also have a copy of it before you. The TDM measure requires a 20% reduction in peak hour trips, and the peak hour trips is 115, so 20% reduction of that. Some examples that we've already discussed with them that they're open to doing is maybe having on-site shower, changing room, maybe adding some bike lockers, having a shuttle service, which they do anyway. So I think it'll be very easy for the applicant to implement, and we'll just bring that back to you at a future meeting. So we have a couple of motions for you. The first one relating to the environmental, and the second one I've lumped together all the other entitlements, the design review, grading and dirt hall, variance, use permit. The applicant and the architect are here this evening and be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa at this point?
Sorry, I just want to notice, I'm sorry. We did do 2 different public notices because the item has continued previously. Mm-hmm. I did speak with the adjacent property owner and no concerns addressed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
So the picture you showed of the building facing industrial, that the building isn't on industrial, it's back behind and there's just the access road beside, correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I can go back if you want.
How tall is the building in front of it?
I'm not sure the height of that building. It's kind of a tall one-story.
12, 15 feet,
The architect
maybe?
may have a better idea of that, yeah. Probably around 15
I think
feet.
it's about
yeah.
15, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will actually see a good portion of this building
This
from
building is
industrial.
about, 39
40
feet. It's set
40 feet.
really centered on the property, so it does have a lot of large setbacks. So you, as you're driving, you may catch the top of it, sure.
But on
This is
both
a rather
sides-
low-level
On
building.
both sides, they're very wide driveway areas that you've
You
shown.
catch a glimpse of
So
it at those driveways.
we'll actually see a fair amount of it. You're talking about hauling in 380 truckloads of soil. How much taller will that make the property?
It varies, but I believe it's 3 feet, yeah.
3 feet?
3 feet at the
And-
most,
And
right.
when you're talking 40 feet, are you talking from existing grade, or are you talking from the 3 feet
From the new
increase?
grade. From the new grade, yes.
From the new grade. So it's really going to be 43 feet high compared to the,
I think the applicant would like to give a more detailed answer to that question.
okay. Okay.
Any other questions for Lisa at this point?
One more question. The second story, that's all enclosed, so it's not like having, except for what's in the showroom portion of it, won't be cars parked on top, will there? It's enclosed? It's
The
second story?
rooftop parking
Yeah.
would all be screened with the parapet,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Lisa. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Gordon Lestrange with Lionakis Architects. So I'm here to explain a little bit about the project and the logic and concept behind how the building came to be as such on the site, since the site conditions were essentially really controlling of how we were able to adapt the footprint onto the site itself. I did want to address just the grading issue initially. Basically, the site slopes from Industrial Road back to the rear along 101. And I believe there's a couple of feet change in elevation from that point back that goes from Industrial Road in a gradual slope. Basically, the drainage is from front to back, which we will be maintaining. And then we're raising the site to get us out of the floodplain. And there will be more grading in the rear than there will be at the front. So if I'm going to hazard a guess, I would estimate between 1.5 to 2 feet for where the building will sit at the front portion of the entry, as opposed to the rear. And some of that's a bit more evident on the sections in the civil drawings in your packet.
Thank you.
Let me just give you a quick overview and the logic. So the flag lot site that we have, I might just pop forward to give you the site plan here. Essentially, the building itself is configured to suit both the Honda requirements from the manufacturer and also from the user requirements based on day-to-day operations. And what that means is that we've got a fairly large service bay, service being the main day-to-day operations of the business, along with the sales portion, which is the showroom component at the front. And that essentially orientated the building as we were making the decision on how to place it on this difficult site. Our main concern was to be able to service the cars coming in and out at the different times of the day, deal with the evening time truck deliveries that would come in for parts and for cars, and try make it as logical and simple as possible, which ended up making really the only way to orientate the building based on its width being slightly longer than its depth in this fashion. The site size, while it can accommodate the parking requirements by the city code, really doesn't satisfy the need for inventory parking, which is why we went for the rooftop option. And that way we can use the rooftop for a lot of the flexibility on different times of operations of the month when there's more cars than others, etc., and not have to really have an acre of parking around the building. We've used the drainage requirements, the bioswale type requirements by the city to orientate how the grading was going to be done. We're following the same process now where most of the drainage will go to the rear, except we're taking it to the sides first for retention and then back to the rear for the stormwater drainage using the same system that exists currently. What that allowed us to do is harness the landscaping requirements and also kind of solve the logic of having a site where we need to accommodate a lot of cars, yet we still need to incorporate all the other requirements, typically through planning of the city, of landscaping, etc. We've been strategic about where we orientate the trees as well, based on the requirements of the city, working with special tree types that will work in the bioswales, And then also, as you can see on the left side of the plan, where we have the customer parking and some of the employee parking, where we have kind of centered most of the trees in that location. So that will help mitigate a little bit of that view corridor you're talking about between the two buildings at the front, because that will be more of the landscaped area that will be visible. So as you come down Industrial and look to your right, you're going to catch the top of the building. You'll see the driveway, then you'll catch the top of the Honda building. You'll see the Honda Element, which is that barrel. And then as you pass the front parcel building, you're going to catch a lot of the landscaped areas from Industrial, and that will help obscure a little bit of the backside of the service bay. You'll still see the building, which, as you mentioned, is going to be 39 feet to the top of the parapet, and that would be at the highest point. But I think with that in mind, we've still got a fairly compatible way to accommodate that building on such a big building on such a small site. And so I'm available for any more questions.
I have one quick one. I just want to be clear about the traffic and circulation. So the easement over to the left is not going to be used for regular traffic circulation? It just seems like it would be a natural.
So the easement on the left is for benefit of both parties, and it's mainly there for the fire truck circulation requirement.
Okay.
So we don't have control over that parcel, so we're not really using that as a primary entry or exit because we're not going to be able to control the improvements in the existing asphalt, which is in pretty bad shape.
I see.
So while we're going to have a curb cut that will allow us to get across the site, we're not necessarily going to be using that as our signage and wayfinding for the operations. So the main entry coming in, which is at the bottom of the flag for in and out for customers, and then the monument signage that will be interior of the site that directs you to sales and then service and customer parking, etc., will all be based on that circular around the building and then back in and out the same way.
I see.
Will the fence that currently goes across that left driveway remain?
Yeah, no, the fence will be removed.
The fence will be removed, so there won't be any reason that people can't go out that
Exactly.
driveway.
So we're not going to promote it, but it will be available.
Okay.
We're not going to prohibit it, is what I'm getting at. And again, we do require it for fire truck access. So we couldn't close it if we wanted to.
Does anybody else have any other questions for the applicant at this point?
I'm not sure if they're for the applicant or who they're
The
for.
flags, how tall are those? And I think that you mentioned that they were, I'm sorry, that they were not visible. Will they be visible by the road?
So we've got about 14 light posts, which will be on there's two coming in the flag, I'm sorry, on the long driveway, and then there'll be surrounding both sides of the building. So we've identified 14 of them along the face of the building and the two on the driveway portion of the flag. They're going to be about 14 or 15 feet high. We've got, they aren't going to be as tall as normal light posts because we can't pollute on either side of our site. So we're working on LED fixtures to get more controlled distribution. So we're looking at about a 5-foot sign that would hang from that, and say it's 15 feet for the pole, with the sign hanging off about 2'6" wide by 5 feet, kind of a banner. And then, again, logic is part of the operations of the facility. The ownership has to participate in the Honda sales events that come along every couple of months. And so there's a need for the display and the advertising of that within the site itself. So that's the intent of those flags. That way he'll be able to comply with his manufacturer requirements.
But 14 of them are actually like on the 101 side of.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, no. We would have 5 on 101 only.
5 on 101,
And
okay.
there'd be 12 to 14 on the industrial side portion of the site, but only 2 of them would be actually on the driveway itself.
Okay.
So the majority will be inside the site, so you'd see them when you park your car, not necessarily as advertising from industrial. The 5 facing the freeway would be visible from
Yeah.
the freeway.
Okay.
The pole sign in the along industrial, along Highway 101, where is that located? Is it behind the building, or is it is it way up to the left?
On the 101 side, it's on the top right corner. You'll see a small keynote in the green landscaped area at the very top corner of the site.
So the top right-hand
top
corner,
right-hand corner. That would be where the large pole sign would be,
the 40-foot one.
the 40-foot one.
Okay.
And then the smaller pole sign, if you look down to the very bottom of the flag, there's a rectangle that shows the curb cut being replaced, the existing one. Just to the north of that is a single keynote that points to the pole sign location. This is a little interesting conundrum for us because we didn't have any, because of the nature of the lot, we don't have enough space to put a monument sign even within the setback requirements and still maintain an accessible sidewalk and a wide enough drive aisle to meet the fire truck requirements. So Honda requires us to have the front monument sign, so we had to come up with this slightly eclectic approach to satisfy the manufacturer requirements and also meet the city requirements, even with the variance.
Any other questions for the applicant at this point? Scott, you mentioned you may have more questions for Lisa or for...
Let me ask one more here. The cars on the roof, will they be visible above the height of the building?
The cars on the very front, at the very center apex of the building, where the parapet would be about 42 inches, maybe a little higher, you would potentially be able to see a couple of cars there, because the roof will slope from the center to each end. So on the rear, we've got about a 10-foot parapet, which has the windows along the rear from the freeway, and then it will slope back up to the center where the parapet will be lower in relation to the roof height. So as you're standing, if you were standing on elevation looking straight at the building, not taking into account any sight lines from the street, you could see the top of the car above that corner parapet. But in general, based on the sight lines from down below, both freeway and from Industrial Road, you're not going to be able to see that based on the angle.
Any other questions for the applicant at this point? Well, at this point, I'd like to see, thank you very much. And we can always call them up if we have any additional questions. But I did want to see if there was anybody here for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none and having no speaker cards then, are you guys comfortable closing public comment and deliberating? Okay. So,
Move to second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. So comments, deliberations at this point?
I do have a couple of concerns. One of which is as you're heading north, actually south, what I consider south on Industrial Road, in order to get into this, you're going to have to cross a double line. And
You mean on industrial?
on Industrial.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if there is a U-turn at Tankledge, which is where the light is there. And so how are we going to address the traffic issue?
Lisa, is that something that you may know the answer to?
I don't recall when the next ability is for a U-turn, but we did have the traffic engineer, Gary Black, take a look at it, and he thought, be able to make the next access, to be able to get to the site, and he didn't see an issue with the site circulation.
The next...
I don't recall what the next ability is, but he thought it was within a reasonable distance to get to the
You
site.
could go down Tankledge and then turn around in one of the businesses there, or you could go all the way down to, not Circle Star, but Britain would be the next actual place that you can legally take a U-turn and turn around. So that concerns me that a lot of the individuals who are coming off of Holly Street will actually be making an illegal left-hand turn into the business. So I'd like to see us think about how that's going to be addressed.
Is it an illegal left-hand turn?
Across the double yellow line. And when you're in Industrial Road, and Industrial Road is very busy during the peak hours,
Yeah. I did discuss it with Gary Black, and I thought there
Yeah.
was the ability to make the left turn into the site. I think he had some concerns in the long term as there
Right.
became more traffic. It may be something for the city to look at for a median or a dedicated left turn lane, but based on the number of traffic trips for this project, he didn't see warranting any further restrictions of the site, of the circulation patterns at all.
I think that needs to be addressed somehow, whether we remove the double yellow line to allow an entrance in there or something. But I think we shouldn't necessarily encourage people to break the law in order to get to one of our businesses.
Am I wrong, or can you not? Gosh, I
You-
almost.
There are breaks
on
to
theirs.
make left-hand turns into
not a
the
break there?
residential streets and the streets on the other side, but there is no break in that region there to be able to make a left-hand turn.
I see.
And I'm just saying, if we're going to do it, let's restripe out there and remove the double lines so that you can actually get into the business. And the police aren't out there ticketing people who are going into the
You
business.
can't-
can,
that's what I'm
as
trying
long
to
as
say.
long as
You
it's
can't-
not an
it is
island, I think you
legal.
can.
Unless
not an
there's
island?
two double, unless it's a double, you can turn left onto it.
Turn left
Um,
As
across
long as
the-
there's no island.
My
I mean,
last traffic
it's been-
school, I think, made that
I
really
keep getting
clear.
I keep getting automatic renewals of my driver's license, so it's been a while since I've studied the DMV book. But my recollection is that you can make a left-hand turn across a double yellow as
Yeah,
long as there's not an
unfortunate-
island or a double.
It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, your concern may still be well placed to the extent that if it's busy,
Yes.
people have to stop in order to make that left-hand turn.
I know this.
But I also refuse to accept the premise that our fine San Carlins are going to intentionally break the law. I refuse to.
They wouldn't be
from
San Carlos,
yeah. Premise. I
be
reject that
outside
premise.
San
I'm
Carlos.
offended by the very suggestion.
I guess that was my question. A, that it's not illegal to make the turn, and I was pretty sure that was true. But I do think that brings up valid circulation issues around
Right.
around the lot.
Right, and that's, as I indicated, Gary Black, I discussed it with him. He's the traffic consultant that reviewed this project, also prepared the general plan. I also talked to Jay Walter, our Public Works Director, and neither one of them felt that any restrictions of a median or no left turn lane were warranted at this time.
Okay. Let's see, what else do I have?
Looks like you have a lot.
I do. I do.
Well, does anybody else have any comments or concerns that they'd like to raise at this point? Just to spread it around. Okay, then back to you,
Just
Scott.
me.
No, that's
Okay.
Well, I
No,
actually share the concern that you do, because it's
Yeah.
120 trips on peak hours. That's, if half of them are going north, that's a number of people standing there in the left-hand lane turning. I mean, no left-hand lane turning.
Well, and regardless of whether, yeah, I mean, you could be pausing traffic. I get that concern.
And in particular, because there are multiple other places on industrial where people make left-hand turns, and right now, to get into the sports center that's there, you see a lot of people backing up on Industrial Road. And then they go past that, and they start really speeding down Industrial Road, and if somebody slows down to make another left-hand turn, it's just going to cascade a little bit. So just something to think about. So one of the questions I had is, how often are the service entrances open? Are they pretty much open all day long? From 7 to 7?
Hi, I'm David Meese with the ownership group. Yes, our service department is open at 7 a.m. and we close at 7.
And the doors are going to be open, and they've looked at the noise of the compressors running and the pneumatic tools
Sure.
that are going to
The
be...
compressors today actually are very quiet.
Very quiet.
And they are in a concrete block room,
Okay.
along with other items in that you just want to keep contained. And then what you're referring to is the air guns that the technicians use.
Yes.
And so the noise there that those emit, we're dealing with that in the shop. However, what we did with the design was we created a sort of an enclosed environment for the shop. So we only have the openings at the far two ends of the building, on the far left and the far right, as vehicles can leave the shop or come into for repair by our staff. Our customer entrance comes in from the drive aisle there off of Industrial and flows in to the right of the pink area designated as the showroom. So it flows in, this will probably work for me here. There we go. So customer entrance is in through here. And at this point, they're in an enclosed canopy all the way into here. And this is all glass, and our service advisors are here to be able to meet them and take care of their needs.
What about loudspeakers?
We would have loudspeakers, as we do today, but we don't use them much as far as for external, because pretty much all of our business needs is internal. But I know the point, because I've been in that environment. Sometimes you're trying to get people from across the lot, and you can see for our use, everything's pretty compact. We're dialed in pretty tight here.
Good question. No, go
Thank you.
ahead, Scott.
Can we put a time limit on the use of those speakers? The reason I ask is that the building will actually be higher up than all of the buildings around it, and you are really not that far from a residential neighborhood. And so a business that's not that far away, that is maybe a little bit closer than you, was the In-N-Out Burger. And they actually put restrictions on the speakers that are used on In-N-Out, at In-N-Out Burger. In fact, at a certain time, and I can't remember whether it's 7 or 8 o'clock, they no longer use those speakers, so that, and they've dialed the volume down as much as possible so that it really only hits the area around them and doesn't sort of spill over. It's the same theory as the light.
Sure.
Okay.
What does a car dealer use speakers for anyway? And I mean, this is
Cars ready, that kind of thing.
really.
Have you ever been in a dealership where they're on the loudspeaker trying to get a hold of somebody, or?
No, I mean, I was just thinking, this is right by the highway. I mean, how loud can these speakers really be? I mean, they're really gonna be that much louder than the highway noise?
You would thought In-N-Out Burger wouldn't have been a big deal, but yeah, it was.
Right.
So
Are you the Dave of David's office?
Of David's office? I don't
Yeah,
know about
David's
that.
office is actually labeled on this, and I thought, wow.
Oh, yes, that's me. There you go.
And is Chris here too?
That's correct. Right there.
And I noticed that Chris and David's offices are exactly the same size.
At
Is there
the
like,
moment,
is
there's
there
gonna be
some
some
like
revisions
pushing
to
and
that
pulling going on there? And another
can
worthless
we add a
question
condition
that
where
is
Dave's office is bigger than Chris'?
I actually was going to have Chris. I
Trying
wanted
to start
Chris's
something,
office
aren't
to
you?
be like 1 foot larger than Dave's office. Another question that is not going to affect my vote at all. Is the Honda dealership in Redwood City going to close down, and this is going to be a replacement for it?
That's correct.
Interesting. Okay.
I do have a question then, just in relation to sound. So, Commissioner Marsters, were you then interested in limiting the noise just for the service department hours, which are more constricted than the sales hours? Is that what you were looking to do?
I was actually going to constrict it to 9 to 7. So it would open. It would be allowed when the
I see what you mean.
I'm trying to get away from the early and late evening, the early morning and the late evening, okay? And I figure most of the speakers are going to be used during the day to let people...
Okay. Then I guess because we're drawing a parallel between In-N-Out Burger, was this a condition that was put on there, and do you have some wording in mind?
I don't. I know that actually I'm not sure whether it was put on as a condition on In-N-Out Burger or whether it was something that the neighborhood negotiated with In-N-Out Burger. Maybe Mr. Savay could...
Well, first, does that matter? Do you care? Dave, does it matter? Do you have a particular time that you need to use the speakers? Does it?
I think what we find ourselves using them for is at times paging for a phone call.
Right.
In our service use, we use two-way radios.
Oh, interesting.
So when a customer's arrived to pick up their car, the receptionist or cashier calls on the two-way radio, and the porters go and grab that car by its tag number. Our paging already is, at our business, is pretty minimal because we know what that's like in an environment when you're at a business and they're paging over this noise box. We also have the benefit of starting from scratch here. So we certainly are interested in working within a community because that's how we live our daily lives. And starting from scratch, we can probably apply some solutions that aren't normally available. One of them would be, we're running everything from scratch to these light poles. We can run speaker wire to these light poles. They can be very minimal, broadcast and in enough locations that it gets the job done without having, a big PA system trying to cover a broad area.
Oriented in such a way that they
Exactly.
face
Internally oriented.
Exactly.
as opposed to
Facing out.
facing
Right.
out.
Right.
Okay.
Al, did you have an additional comment? I noticed you leaning towards the mic.
Yeah, I remember the noise being an issue after the In-N-Out went into operation and they did turn down the volume. I can't remember if we had a condition, but it is common to have conditions, especially for fast food, because they tend to be located near residential. So it is typical to do that for those types of uses.
Okay, great. And that would be something we could word appropriately to make the speaker space internal. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, before I
do.
let you sit down.
I did. That's
Or
okay.
are you commenting?
Dirt hauling on Saturday and Sunday? Is there a way we can limit the dirt hauling so that it doesn't occur on Saturdays and Sundays?
I wouldn't see a problem with that. I would doubt they'd want to work that on Saturday and
Okay.
Sunday. So, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of things that will keep a little bit of peace.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last thing I have is sort of a discussion amongst
Thank
the planning commissioners. So, for the sign ordinance, they're asking for a variance from 200 square feet to 1,200 square
Significant.
feet. It's a very significant increase. And while I'm sort of leaning towards granting it, I would like to see there sort of be some compensation or some trade-off, shall we say, in order to do that. And for me, that trade-off is trees, landscaping, and looking for additional places for trees to be located and without interfering with the marketing or the advertisement of the interfering with the advertisements, the signs and things.
Okay.
So
Do you
I'm
have-
Can I ask? I'm just kind of curious.
Sure.
Are any of these signs visible from? I was under the impression that almost all of these signs were basically just visible from the dealership itself, other than the sign that's visible from the freeway and the sign that's visible from industrial. Are any of the other signs visible from the street or the highway?
You'd have a very difficult time snapping your neck over and making out what these are. As described, they're 30 inches, 2 feet 6 by 5 feet.
And the
60
main
inches.
purpose of these signs are just to meet dealership requirement, basically
They
honest
reinforce
requirements.
the sale message of the periodic sales that the manufacturer have. You know,
So-
our merchandising area is outdoors,
okay.
right? We can't put everything inside in the shelf or in the showroom. So consumers tend to feel more comfortable and more apt to purchase if they recognize that they've come to the right place at the right time. And so the merchandising effort that's put on by the manufacturers, both in television, broadcast, and web, needs to be reinforced at the facility. And so that's what these do. So we're talking about the sight lines that are available from industrial past the existing building and the gap that it has today. Who knows what that might be in the future? It might be a bigger, wider building. We don't know. But yes, the intent is not for these banners, if you will, attached to our light poles. The intent is not for them to somehow broadcast or carry a message out to people driving on industrial. We have no envision nor expectation that they'll do that. They are for when people enter the lot and are walking through our lot looking at the merchandise, that they're reminded of, oh yes, I saw some ad. Oh yes, it's that time of year. Oh yes, it's that sale right now. That's what they're for.
Are these the little yellow squares on sheet L1? Are those the poles?
Which sheet are you referring to?
Yeah, they are, the parking lot light.
Right, we're looking at this one here.
Oh, yes, the landscape plan, here.
I mean, I have to say that looks like a decent amount of landscaping for
That's-
the use.
Yeah.
We do have a bit of a restriction as well, that we're using the majority of the landscape as bioswales for the filtering of the stormwater.
Right, that's right.
So we do have a restriction on the type of planting that we can put in those bioswales. And so a number of the trees that are on the right side of the plan already are trees that are able to thrive in those environments. But the trees do interfere in the ability for the drainage to occur back down the site to the rear. So we were trying to accommodate the minimum required amount of trees by the zoning code based on the size of the site and the amount of parking, and additionally meet the stormwater requirements, and that did not have a lot of wiggle room.
I see. And I have to say, I do think it looks adequate for the use.
The 24 trees, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a lot of, more trees than I've seen on a lot. But I do appreciate your, thank you very much. I do appreciate the
And also, don't forget,
strategy.
Chris also has his putting green right here.
Yeah, the putting green.
Don't forget Chris's putting green.
Right. No, it's artificial.
Oh, it's artificial.
Let's not
Maybe we
start
can
that
require
debate.
that be actual grass.
I just like to know how you knew it was Chris's putting.
He's got a, it is a significant sign variance, though. I understand what you mean.
But-
I just don't think this is the solution.
It's,
Well, I'm thinking creatively here.
Okay.
And thinking that there's the potential for either rooftop trees in pots, or are there the ability to put trees along the driveway? Because most of the trees are all in the back there.
Right.
I'm just, to me, that's a very large amount of signage, and while I think that's part of, that comes along with the business, I don't really have a huge problem. When I think of banners, I think of those flags.
Right.
What I'm worried about is, are there long banners that are on the tops or the sides of the building that are hanging down? I'm not sure, when you talk about banners, are you just talking flag banners?
In the variance, we've called out the flag banners that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And then we have one large banner on the back side of the building facing 101.
Right.
Right.
And that's pretty much a permanent but changeable banner.
Exactly, because there's always a
Okay.
different seasonal sale message.
And so that's going to be a very large banner.
It is, on the back side of the building facing 101.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, I'm just trying to see if there's any wiggle room here for some additional landscaping to sort of offset the variance for.
May I ask, is your concern more aesthetic for this particular lot, or I guess what I'm asking is, would adding a couple of additional potted trees on the top of a roof that we can't really see add much to the visual quality of this project? And that, I just don't know if
Yeah.
it will, in all honesty. But I guess that's kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to treat that as a rhetorical question.
No.
Thanks, David. No, but I
mean, you know, Scott, I love trees. I'm just looking,
But I see
there's
your
no
point.
place to put any more trees on this property. I mean, the driveway, I mean, I'm thinking you're going to want cars to get by. I mean,
No.
I just I don't see any room for trees.
Yeah.
And I love trees.
Although, remember that the trunk of the tree is not that wide, and
Jesse, you're about to say something?
no, I think that, I think there's a lot of trees here actually already for the parcel itself. I mean, it's a large parcel, and I think putting trees on top of the second-story parking deck, I'm not even going to see trees from 101.
There wouldn't
You're
be,
worried
except,
about
except that I don't think we would actually see it, given how I understand the lot.
Want to throw it out there?
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's a great idea.
Is there any other comments, concerns, or questions about the project at this point? Okay, well, hearing and seeing nothing then, Lisa, would this be an appropriate point to put those motions up and see if we're ready to do that?
I got them.
You got them?
I move that the Planning Commission adopt the accompanying resolution for approval of the proposed mitigated negative declaration associated with the proposed development of a new automobile sales and service facility at 775 Industrial Road based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the prepared initial study mitigated negative declaration and staff report.
May I get a second, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the design review, grading, and dirt haul certificate variance and conditional use permit associated with the proposed development of a new automobile sales and service facility at 775 Industrial Road based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and as conditioned in the conditional use permit, variance, and design review certificate and grading and dirt haul certificate.
I'm sorry, really quickly, I want to make sure, do we need to do anything special to add condition 15?
Yes. And do you want to put the two additional conditions in?
With the addition of condition 15 and the condition that dirt hauling not occur during the weekends, and the condition that that the applicant work with staff to ameliorate any amplified sound caused by the speakers proposed.
Second.
Great.
And then
Is that?
the additional one.
Oh, he said that.
Oh.
He said condition 15.
Yeah.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Reports, correspondence, and general information. Report on recent city council actions.
I would just like to report back to the commission that the city council did approve the authorization of the Mills Act that was forwarded to them for the property at 40 Pine Avenue. And I think it's known, but I don't think we've met since our last meeting on the 18th. And so, as you probably know by now, the City Council did approve the development plan for the Transit Village with modifications, removing the 4-story element and a couple of other conditions, as you might have heard of. And those are all the items that I have for recent City Council actions.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the hotel?
City Council authorized the purchase of 3 properties known as the Landmark Site, 595 Industrial, 850 East San Carlos Avenue, and 810 East San Carlos Avenue. So we're in escrow on those 3 properties right now. We're working on our due diligence, so we're doing a Phase 1 environmental and ALTA survey, as well as gathering information on all the tenants at the site. Staff is also working on a request for proposal for hotel developers. We met with the Economic Development Subcommittee of the Council to review that, and that'll go back to the City Council at their first meeting in January, and then we would release that proposal for developers, review those proposals, and bring them back to the City Council for their consideration. Do you have any questions? The City Council also approved the lease agreement and the relocation agreement for the Clear Channel billboard at 800 Bramston.
Thank you. Okay. Lots going on. Any planning commission comments or reports? No?
Nope.
Okay. Correspondence. I don't see any additional correspondence.
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you. And then finally, planning staff comments, reports, and updates of current projects.
Yes, we actually do have a couple of announcements. The first announcement I would like to make is that the City Hall will be closed beginning Tuesday, December 24th through January 1st, and we will reopen on Thursday, January 2nd. The other announcement I would like to make is that the Community Development Department will be moving temporarily and have a new location, a temporary location over at the library. We will be there. The area here on the first floor will be undergoing a remodel. There will be a new planning counter, which will create more visibility and greater customer service, enhanced customer service operations for the department. And so beginning on January 2nd, we will be located inside the library. So the planning permit counter as well will be relocated on the second floor of the library next door. And I provided a little flyer on the dais for all of you, so you have that information as well. And then for the first meeting of the year, which will be on January 6th, it looks like we might have been able to cancel it, but we did receive an appeal application of a previous RDRC decision for the property at 1937 Eaton Avenue. And because of the closure of City Hall, we're actually going to be providing the packet to the Commission earlier, so that should be available at the end of this week. You'll receive an email notification letting you know when that packet is available. So that's the one item that we will start the new year off of. I don't have anything else unless Al or Lisa. Other than that, just happy holidays and have a great new year.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Well,
Thank you.
That's the end. I adjourn this meeting at 8:31. Happy holidays.
Yeah, it is.